Now, we would move forward to our next scintillating conversation on the topic advertising on OTT, connecting the new brand order. This session will look at what's encouraging the brands to approach OTT platforms and how they have executed their campaigns on these platforms. Now, their approach to OTT may become the template of the industry. So, we have been joined by our esteemed panelist. Would like to invite on stage the Chief Product Officer of MediaCom, Averill Sequeira. Please welcome on stage with a huge round of applause, of course. Welcome, ma'am. We have been joined by the Head of Brand Marketing, SWIGGY, Mr. Saurabh Nath. Please welcome on stage, sir. Along with them, we have Mr. Gaurav Kanwal, Chief Revenue Officer, Digital and SMB South Asia, Z Entertainment Enterprises Limited. Please welcome, sir. We have with us Mr. Jaikishin Chhaproo, who is the Head Media and PR, ITC Limited. I would request you to please come on stage, sir. Along with them, we have Mr. Vineet Singh, Vice President, Brand and Creative Strategy, BYJU'S. Would like you to please join us on stage, sir. Along with them, we have Mr. Amit Sethiya, Head of Marketing, SYSKA Group. Please welcome, sir. And I must invite Mr. Kosal Malladi, who is the Vice President, Madison World, as the moderator of the session. Stage is all yours, Kosal. A big round of applause for all of you once again.
Okay, so welcome everyone. So essentially, back in 2013, 12-13, there was a point of time where I was working on the launch of online sports streaming website. So we had strict regulation. The website should load very quickly, and users probably have 100 MB of data per month. So it has to, they should still watch the website. So I remember joking about this, saying ki, kaun dekhne wala hai yaar ye? But 2016 happened, Geo happened, and the way we look at online streaming has changed, right? Data has become a complete commodity. You've had Netflix coming in, Prime coming in, all the large OTT players like Hotstar, Z5, Sony Live, Voot, MX, and so on and so forth. A lot of regional players come in. I think at last count, there were 40 odd players in the market, right, as we speak. So, with that coming in, of course, these platforms need to sustain. So there are two ways they've sustained. One is through AVOD, which is advertising supported, and the other is through SVOD, which is subscription supported. For a market like India, right, we don't like to pay. So SVOD was always a challenge, and maybe it is still going to remain a challenge. But when it comes to AVOD, there is a slightly different story. So if you talk to any platform today, they'll claim that they have anywhere from 50 million to 200 odd million users coming to their platform every month. If you look at the advertising revenues on these platforms, in the last 4 years, they've grown by 400%, which is a huge number. At the same time, people still share their Netflix passwords. I don't know how many of you have your own passwords, how many of you have your own accounts. Most of us share these accounts. Yeah, we have our passwords, not our own accounts. So, yeah, right. And I think that's something. In fact, very interestingly, today morning there was an article saying that Netflix has decided to support advertising. So, what SVOD, is it going to stay or is it going to die soon in India? Will it be a hybrid model? I mean, being a hybrid model is an easy answer. We'll all say it will be a hybrid model. But what will dominate? Will AVOD dominate? Will SVOD dominate? Or are we completely reading this wrong? Will India pay for SVOD very soon? Also as brands, why would I want to be present on AVOD? Why would I advertise on these channels? Are the numbers still large enough for me to advertise here? Can I do something more than just standard video advertising on these channels? I don't have an answer to this, but we have some fantastic panelists here. So they'll probably help us answer these questions today, right? So let's start off. Let's start with Gaurav. Gaurav, one quick question. Is India ready to pay for content? What does your experience on Z5 say?
So, Kosal, part of India is ready. Part of India is still sharing passwords, right? See, it's the OTT industry is at its infancy, right? It's been what, 6 years, 6.5 years. Let's go back to when e-com started about a little over a decade, 15 years ago. It took a while for e-com to get a critical mass. First when we had Flipkart starting, the first goal was to acquire more and more customers, and then it moved to how do I increase ARPU, right? What we see in the OTT industry, we're seeing an early adopters already come on board, but yes, there's a slight bit of a plateau. But as you'd mentioned earlier when we were talking that Geo did bring in a revolution because of cheaper data and easy access to data. There are still 200 million more people still sitting on 2G, right? Who are waiting to come on board the 4G and the 5G bandwagon. So definitely we see that one, there is a huge AWOD play for sure, right? Because those guys will come on board, increase the reach. On the SWOD side, as the economy progresses, as people get more used to, 25 years, 30 years back, people didn't want to pay for cable either, right? Well, things have changed. People pay happily for their DTH connections, and now the cord cutters are paying for the OTT. And given the paucity of time and shortened attention times, people want to watch what they want to watch when they want to watch. And that's going to be only possible in OTT. It's not going to be possible on linear television. But then linear television has the reach. So come back to your initial question was that, yes, people will pay. We already have close to about 70 million plus people paying for content on various OTTs across the board. And typically anybody who's paying for one is generally paying for two or three. And the other thing that's helping through this entire journey is the telco deals. It's not all B2C, it's all B2B. A lot of it, that is B2B as well. So with the bundling and as we evolve as an ecosystem, the pricing models will evolve as well. As the pricing models evolve, becomes easier. We will definitely see a massive upswing in the SWOD subscriptions across the board. Yeah.
But do you think there'll be like a tipping point when this will happen, or it'll be a slow and steady process?
From here on, it's going to be a slow and steady process. However, what you said earlier, I think the hybrid model is here to stay, right? Given the amount of content that is needed to keep those guys from churning, and the cost of content continues to go up. I think, you mentioned Netflix, and I heard the same thing about Disney Plus as well. Globally, they're looking at an advertising supported model, right? The cost of content, the cost of sports tournaments, and we've all been seeing that, right? It's going to be very difficult. It's practically impossible to sustain it only on the back of SWOD. I think the hybrid model is the way to go moving forward.
Thank you. So now let's check in with Amit, right? So as a brand, what is your view on the landscape? I mean, we heard from the platform side.
So it's not anymore like a secret that SYSKA spends a lot of money on television because that's where we get a lot of awareness for, say, fundamentally the LED category that we are known for. But while we are doing pretty good in the category, which is LED, which is broadly offline in that sense, we also have diversified into new age categories, like example, your personal care grooming or mobile accessories. In fact, smart home products as well. And I think when it comes to these kind of audiences, we have started exploring OTT, definitely from the last 3 to 4 years of time. And it is, in fact, increasing year on year in terms of the monies that we are putting there, right, in the entire media mix. So yes, I think we are in the position to now today fetch incremental audiences with the help of this new avenue. And I think connected TV is just aiding to the entire process as we go on again, So I think in short, it's going to be, say, from, evolution to revolution, I guess. Let's see and wait and watch. But yes, I think OTT has definitely got the attention, of the brand.
So if I have to just dig a little deeper, what percentage of your mix would be on OTTs?
So typically it was single digit, I would say in short, say around 3 to 4 years back, and today it has just entered the double digit number.
Fantastic. Good to know.
Yeah.
So, Averill, so just from your perspective, right, you as a gatekeeper of this entire ecosystem, what's your view? So how do you think this will evolve? Also, if every platform says that they have 100 million users, how do you believe in that? I mean, that's a question we get asked all the time.
Thanks, Kosal. And I'll just take this opportunity to rephrase, I think, more than gatekeepers. I think the role of the agency here is more as a consultant or a facilitator, because there's this wonderfully rich new world of OTTs. And then there are advertisers on the other side, whom for the last 2 decades of my experience, I've always asked the same question: how can my 100 rupees work harder? So I think it's really about bringing the two worlds together, ensuring that there's best value from the OTT ecosystem to the advertiser and the objective that they're playing. So in the absence of really any third party or any neutral way of measuring the system, I think the role that an agency plays is in one way asking the OTT players the tougher questions. So consistency on their numbers, the time spent, geographies, audience profiles. I think that's where we bring a bit of checks and balances to the system. And on the other hand, I think we encourage advertisers to think of it as, yes, I do understand the role of it as incremental reach, but I also think there is a big world of mid-funnel planning that OTTs also bring to the table, because that's where it's a very engaged audience, very personalized kind of content that they're watching. So how do you really use OTT platforms to think of your content differently versus putting what's on television back on OTT, or really looking at, not just video inventory, but other kinds of inventory. So I think that's really the role that I see agencies playing. I'm very bullish about the OTT sector. I think it's growing phenomenally. I think the pace that regional OTTs are growing at, and especially the void that they have fulfilled in terms of quality content. I think I myself watch a lot more regional, and it could be dubbed, it could be original, but I think it's just opened my mind to new forms of storytelling. So I think there is an audience there, and OTTs are clearly filling the void. To your question on how we validate, and I think that's again a role that as agencies we take very seriously. I'd look at it in two ways. For inventory that's programmatically available, it's far simpler, because there we're buying audiences and not really OTT platforms. So we're able to place the right kind of bids, get very granular in terms of the quality of audiences we want, the device, the genre viewed, and so on. And then we add trackers to that. So when we know that it's being served, there's verified, there's viewability, there's brand safety. So in that sense, we're taking care of the interests of the advertiser while at the same time exploring the OTT ecosystem. But I do understand there is a large part of inventory that's not programmatically available. And there, I think I'd encourage all of us as stakeholders in this industry to really think of it as, the proof of the pudding. So when I'm doing a campaign, and I see the success, whether it's in terms of today, baby steps, brand lift studies, or whether it's in terms of brand recall, or whether it's being socially shared content, there is chatter around it, there is increase in search volumes. I think these are all kinds of metrics we must start moving towards, and not really copy paste what's perhaps worked for decades in television. I think that opportunity does exist with OTT, and I hope we all explore and get there soon.
I mean, it's an interesting thing that you brought up, right? You said that we should not look at OTT as a copy-paste of television. However, the truth of the matter is, the reason a lot of monies are probably moving to OTTs is because for the marketers, it's an easier sell. So if I tell them, Acha, tumko...
And for the OTT players.
Huh? And for the OTT players, right? So we are all equally responsible, because that's where the money is coming in from. So a lot of marketers are looking at OTT as an extension of TV, and hence are able to instinctively buy inventory there and not feel that they're doing something wrong, right? Like, I think FMCG is one category that's looking at OTT as an incremental reach medium very, very aggressively. So, Jayesh, what's your view on this?
I think let's take a step back. I think what Gaurav also mentioned in terms of cord cutters and other things. So if you look at the way the content viewing audience has shifted, especially in the last 2 years after Geo, whatever, 2016 or 2020, a significant amount of audiences have actually vanished out of the linear television viewing habit. The second thing is for FMCG players, a significant amount of viewer base or the target audience is women. And it is a known fact that most of the women used to always miss the original telecast of a serial. And India being a single television home, they used to normally end up catching repeats. And at times they would miss it. What started happening is with OTT, they started actually watching content on their handheld devices. So they did not have to go and sit in the drawing room and other things. They were comfortable sitting in their bedroom and catching content at their own convenience rather than an appointment viewing. That's what probably attracted FMCG advertisers to start going and targeting them. See, end of the day, the objective for an advertiser is in terms of reaching your brand message and communication to the audience. And I think OTT provided that platform very seamlessly in terms of reaching out to the TG. That's one TG. The second TG, which is the youth, 18 to 34 or let's say 40. These guys are cord cutters. Do they consume content? Yes, they do. But they do consume content which is a bit differentiated. They are not interested in appointment viewing. They want to watch it at their own convenience. And they want to have bragging rights about it. And a significant amount of content is today sitting on OTT platforms. And that's again a huge chunk for most of our products. And therefore, it becomes an easy access in terms of reaching out to the youth through OTT platforms. So yeah, when you say that it's technically not a OTT created or agency created scenario, it's also a situation wherein the audiences are sitting out there and that's where the money is kind of flowing out there.
Okay, fair point. But would you then say that if you are planning for a certain TG, let's say women, would you then look, you would probably take a Star and a Z and whatever, and would you look at any OTT platform as a TV channel in your evaluation?
Yeah, so we will end up taking a, let's say, a Hotstar, we'll take a Sony Live, we'll take a Z5, and we kind of top up our plans on these platforms, reaching out the same set of audiences.
It's still a top level reach frequency
absolutely.
metric that you...
That's exactly the matrix that most of us have been used to. And I think I would say OTT or digital has complicated this entire ecosystem by throwing in significant amount of buzzwords. Because they don't want people, a common person, to understand how it works, they're zapping them with acronyms.
Would you agree? No, I mean, so I agree, or maybe not. The point is, I understand where you're coming from, right? But just to dig a little deeper, do you think it's a marketer's refusal to dig a little deeper and change a way of thinking? That, or is it that there are so many success metrics that are already available in the market through TV and reach and frequency, it's easier to build a narrative around that?
No, let's kind of again take a step back, okay? Mathematically, when you kind of try to evaluate any plan, what are the broad things you want? You want to know how many people you have reached, what is the frequency of your communication, because there is a science and proven science that, you know, for certain messages you need at least a 3+ or a 4+ or a 5+ kind of a frequency coming in. If I'm able to measure that on any platform, it is easy for me to say to kind of determine a success of a plan. Okay, compare it with SOVs against competition and everything. The moment I start getting thrown different set of matrices and numbers and different nomenclature coming in, it becomes significantly difficult for me to even know whether my plan is being viewed or not yet.
So it's about creating one view of the audience at the end of the day. Fair point. Now, if we talk for a brand like SWIGGY, right? Like we've had two separate things that were mentioned. One, she mentioned that we should look beyond reach frequency. We should look at some form of action. We should talk to the end consumer. We should listen to what the end consumer says, look at other metrics and build a narrative around it. We also heard another point of view or an extension saying that it's easier to have one view of the audience, look at reach frequency and create a narrative around that, right? For a food tech brand, where you're probably looking at both. I'll just give an example, and we were speaking about this in the lounge. A food tech brand, not Swiggy, but which was into the fast food space, they did an integration with a sports integration on OTT, where they gave out coupon codes, right? While whatever the initial narrative was, we will reach X number of people, A, B, C, D. And it was a huge award-winning campaign that was done. I mean, it won so many awards. But at the end of the day, if you talk to the brand internally, they say, "यार ये campaign ना चला नहीं, कोई order नहीं किया मेरे से." How do you really break this narrative?
You know, the answer to that is the consumer journey, right? The consumer journey is still AIDA. In my head, I've been in FMCG, now I'm in tech. The consumer journey is awareness, interest, desire, action. If you're expecting a consumer to watch a piece of content on OTT, look at a piece of advertising which is on food, and then suddenly, okay, I want to eat a pizza, it's not going to happen. Because, you know, food is related to need spaces. I will eat a pizza when I want to eat a pizza, when I'm getting together with people, or I want to eat a dessert at late night or whatever, or I need to eat an evening snack. There are specific times in the day where food is completely relevant to your life, right? You can't just force that relevance into the consumer's life just because you're showing a piece of advertising and making it easier for them to move from desire to action. The point is the desire bit has not happened yet. What you've essentially done is just awareness. You've still not built interest. You've still not moved to desire. You're expecting action. It doesn't happen, right? I think if your question is largely around saying what are the impact or what do you expect out of OTT, whether it is short-term brand build or short-term sales or long-term brand building, I think like a lot of answers within marketing, the answer simply is it depends. And it depends on the kind of business that you're in, right? I come from the world of FMCG, spent a decent amount of time in FMCG, where marketing is non-attributable, right? I would put a piece of advertising, and the only way I would measure that piece of advertising is in a brand track probably a month later down the line to figure out if my awareness has improved, or if my trials have gone up, or if my consideration has gone up, right? Now, and this used to be the bulk of advertisers 5 years back. It's just that right now we're talking about tech and everything, but 5 years back it was big FMCG, it was big telecom, it was beverage giants who were on TV, right? Spending tons of money. And the attribution was very clearly saying that it will happen over a period of time because that's the business that you're in. So the brand will build over a period of time. I think it has changed because the kind of marketing that we're talking about when it comes to tech and D2C is different. The cycle is much more condensed to say. And I've also been on the tech side wherein I have done work with OTT and I have seen an increase in sessions, right? So there has been immediate increase in sessions of somebody looking at a piece of content on OTT and saying, hey, I want to understand what this brand is. Let me click and know more about this brand. And they've landed on my website. What doesn't happen is it doesn't necessarily correlate into sales, right? Because I think if all of you know Millward Brown, I think has a very clear model of brand equity. It's called meaningful differentiation and salience. For any brand to do well, there are three parameters largely, right? Saliency is how quickly does that brand come to your mind when you're thinking of a particular problem. Meaningfulness is how relevant is it when I'm thinking of a particular problem or attention point. And differentiation is how well does that brand do the job better than everybody else. So what you're solving through putting it on OTT is definitely salience. There is no doubt that, you know, spending tons of money on whether it's an IPL or OTT or any other platform which is similar gives you a saliency increase. It definitely gives you a saliency increase. You can see it in your brand searches. You can see it in your brand track. You can see it in your share of search and so on, right? What it will not give you is meaningfulness and differentiation because that's your job as a marketer. You're being a lazy marketer if you say, yaar, maine campaign chala diya, abhi directly sessions nahi aaye aur immediately convert nahi hua. So I think the answer is slightly more complicated than to say, yaar, campaign chala hai, uska impact nahi hai.
Yeah, interesting. So you're basically saying, yeah, please.
I just wanted to add it to that, Kosal, and I'm glad he mentioned that at the end. I think, firstly, the whole commitment, in the example that you shared, the whole commitment to a number is the problem because I think that's where. But I think even as campaign design, what we're not seeing is the content that is being played on it. Because you've attributed the fact of, the coupon redemption on the platform. What we could do differently is really design it to succeed or not and test and learn. So if you have 5 different pieces of creative, you have 3 different day parts, 8 different audience affinities you're running it on, you compare where is it that you're seeing conversions, you re-optimize the campaign. I don't know if that happened in the example that you're sharing. So I think it's too early to kind of cancel the role that digital in OTT can play beyond reach and salience because a lot of it depends on the kind of content that's being put behind it.
Great, thanks. So you're essentially saying track the right metric. There's a lot more that can be achieved beyond reach and frequency. It's not necessarily sales, but track the right metric, right? And that's what you're saying. And that brings into question, how do you then attribute the entire funnel? And maybe I'd love to know how BYJU'S looks at this, Vineet. How do you look at attribution for the end user? I mean, the end-to-end user journey.
See, I mean, like everyone's been saying, right? First, we need to figure out what we want. I think that's the most important bit, which is going back to seeing why you've gone and integrated or done done any kind of marketing on OTT platforms or anywhere for that matter, right? If it's brand recall, brand salience, you obviously go out and create enough and more. You have enough and more tools in the ecosystem or tracking metrics that can help you track that. You can run brand tracks, you can do multiple stuff. If you have downloads or you have relevancy as a piece that you're looking at, they again agencies good enough, kind enough like yours and every other one in the world that can help us track everything around that. But again, just going back to the pan, right? I think we keep talking about tech, we keep talking about new age metrics. I think we've complicated the world so much, right? I think the simple world of understanding what your requirement is and just going in, there are various easy ways of tracking that across the world, right? Google's got into the whole OTT tracking space now with launching Firebase. That's a good enough deal to track what you would like to track across OTT platforms. For us also, right? I mean, it depends on what we're using the platform for. For me as a brand, I feel there are enough brand tracking tools and metrics available for me to be able to capture any and every audience report or integration that I want to know about.
Okay, I mean, interestingly, of course, there are multiple tools, but the truth of the matter also is that each tool exists within its own walled garden, right? Like Google will not access Facebook, Facebook will not, Amazon has its own DSP, Flipkart's tied up with. So that like everyone is launching their own tool and they're giving end-to-end tracking within their own platform. So how easy or difficult does it make?
Like I said, everyone wants to complicate things a lot more for us, right? That's the whole game. See, everyone wants a piece of the pie, right? I mean, we're sitting on a panel and discussing OTTs is the next big thing. And you will have a zillion tools that will be launched to go out and help track this, phenomenon that exists in the country right now. But again, like as marketers, we need to decide what works for us and what doesn't. There's simple ways of going out and partnering with the right partners to get you the information that you need. Or there are complicated ways where you dive into 750 kinds of tools and complicate your life and everyone's life further. So that's as simple as it can get.
So in fact, I'd want to bring Gaurav in. And when we were discussing the same point, he had mentioned something about the attribution within the Hotstar platform that we are talking about, the sports integration, right? Or which, so essentially, are there any points that brands need to keep in mind when they look at success metrics?
See, it's a very marketer dependent thing, right? There are marketers who just wanna, I wanna be on every platform. All right, so I'm gonna put a bit of money here, and at the end of it, unfortunately, nothing works, right? The end goal, the end objective has to be very clearly defined, and there has to be the right tools. And what we need is absolutely right? I would love to have a buck in OTT, right? My ad ops has raised their hands that how many tools you have a SYSKA, you have a branch, you have a moat, you have a apps flyer, you have this and that, right? And now Google's launched its own, right? Now, what we have to understand is that it's not something that, just run a tag, right? From a tech standpoint, I have to test it on my platform. Every new tool has to be tested across programmatic campaigns, PMP, direct campaigns, and so on and so forth, that it's firing, it's working, and it's not messing with my player, right? It's not affecting my user experience, because that's the primary thing for me, right? So from a marketer standpoint, unless and until they're clear in terms of what their end goal to a particular campaign is, right? I think we live in this world of ambiguity where, somebody would say this platform didn't work for me, or this platform worked for me, because the end goal wasn't clear, right? In terms of what was the achievement, I have advertisers come to me and say, I want this percentage of CTR. Now, that's not purely dependent on my audience, my content, or my platform. You may be running a bad creative or a brilliant creative, and you may be underballing the CTR, and I may end up delivering double of that. So there are multiple factors, there are multiple variables to each thing, and unless you're clear in terms of what you want, it's going to be, neither here nor there.
Yeah, I mean, somewhere again, a reason why it's so easy to understand other forms of it, like TV, for example. I mean, there's a clear mandate, right? If you are investing less than 400, 500 odd GRPs in a month, please don't. Save your money. On digital, you have 1 lakh rupees. Let's grab it. So that's a narrative we all probably need to walk away from and set the benchmarks and the expectations very clearly is what I hear.
Sure. So Kosal, see, one of the things that OTT has definitely successfully done is democratized video advertising, right? You can definitely get on to lower budgets and still expect a certain result out of it, which you cannot do on TV below a certain budget or below certain number of GRPs, right? But to be on OTT, right, there still has to be one of the basic requirements is that you have to have a video asset, right? Which in itself is a certain amount of an investment, right? And then, you know, there are the usual creative principles that apply to it, right? You have a crappy creative, it's not going to work, right? You know, you can put together 5 still images and make a video out of it, right? And run it on Facebook, you expect results out of it, it's not going to happen, right? So as a marketer, unless the market is very clear and has a very clear focus on the end goal, it's not going to work.
Thank you. So just want to understand, like, I mean, you said you'd love to have a BARC, and I think BARC has also tried for a while. I mean, there was ACOM that was being discussed about. I haven't heard anything about it in the last 2-3 years now. At the same time, we are looking at a single user journey. I mean, you talk to any agency, they probably have their own form of probability modeling, random duplication, something else, this and that. And they try to create a single view of the audience. There were also deterministic tools in the market. I mean, Zapier was one platform that we were all speaking about for the longest time. Is there, what next? Is there a better way to arrive at this? Do you think, what are the next steps for this, Averill, if you...
So there'll definitely be a better way, but I think we have to wait for it. It's not yet there. The race is still open, is the way I see it, because like the gentleman mentioned, it is a high growth industry, and there are so many, therefore, people who want pieces of the pie. So there are telcos in the race for this. There are OEMs in the race for this. There are OTT players, large OTT players who are looking at creating their own measurement metrics. As agencies, as you mentioned, we've done a fairly decent job to fill the void in terms of probabilistic models. It's not enough, because I think getting all kinds of viewership behaviors on one platform is a holy grail. So I think time will tell, but I'm pretty optimistic that we will reach a place where, especially if I look at what Nielsen's doing in the US market with Amazon ad streaming, where they're able to get on the same platform viewership of linear television as well as connected TV, get us a lot of those metrics that we're comfortable with in terms of reach and frequency. I think that will come in the market. My worry is that it was also a double-edged sword. Because moment we look at cross-platform measurement, we look at, getting everyone on the same platform, being able to choose every platform based on incremental reach, what happens to the 6th OTT player in the market? Because today, I think each of them have a role to play, whether it comes to in a regional space or to a premium audience or to, let's say, a niche female affluent audience. I think that's the beauty that OTT brings, right? The kind of diversity of audiences and content. If you bring everybody on the same cross-platform and you're judging everyone by the same metric of reach and frequency, you may end up missing some of that diversity. So I think time will tell. I don't know which one player will really emerge as the, the voice on measurement, the way BARC is. But yeah, I think we shouldn't make some of those, we shouldn't take out what is beautiful about this entire ecosystem in the race for that kind of cross-platform measurement.
So what do you think is the most beautiful thing, at the risk of repeating your answer, about this whole ecosystem? The audience engagement, the data collection, the two-way interaction?
So I think, to me, what is very different about OTT viewing as a consumer behavior is really the fact that it's a very personalized form of content consumption. Possibly you end up watching things which you would not have in a more shared viewing television experience. And I think once, if you see the rise of Korean dramas, for instance, or you see the rise of, let's say crime dramas in the country, I think the fact that there is an audience for that, and that's the reason it's doing well, right? In the top 10 non-English speaking programs, it's actually Korean programs that are doing well. So that's amazing. That's what we've learned. And that only happened because there are so many OTT players and there is low data costs, as you mentioned, and people started exploring. So who knows what else is out there? So I think that's really what I find compelling about OTT right now.
So actually speaking about content, Vineet, what role do you think content marketing would play? Because I think that's something we haven't discussed too much. We're just talking reach frequency.
Yeah, I think, see, a couple of things to this, right? As everyone's been saying, it's extremely interesting platform. Extremely interesting platform, right? I mean, as just got pointed out, consumer interaction and behavior is so different on this platform, right? And while we're looking at marketing and advertising, there's a whole new world in terms of content integrations and advertising that exists. And one of the brands that I think has done it really well is Ola, and a couple, I think a few of their campaigns that they've done with not the main OTT players, but some of this, I think they did something with TVF and a couple of others. They've been very, very interesting, right? I think also the fact that that makes you get closer to the audience in terms of relatability. The audience engagement is really high when you look at the whole content marketing piece, especially from a brand perspective. I think it's a great piece. But again, it boils down to what we were discussing earlier, right? I mean, what's the end goal for you? If it's all about engagement and creativity and also increasing a lot of love for your brand, I think content marketing is the way to go. And then for D2C brands like us, I think, yeah, that is something that we'll keep exploring. And pieces of content that are great always stay in the heart for the longer time, which means the brand stays in the heart for the longer time.
So in fact, that's an interesting point because a lot of, apart from the top OTTs, a lot of regional OTTs are probably allowing advertisers to come on board only through content and not through ads. So yeah, that's possibly a way forward for this, right? So actually, yeah, Amit, what's your view on regional OTTs? Is there a way forward for them? Because I'll tell you why I'm asking this question. When we said, of course, content plays a crucial role and regional OTTs are, some of them are definitely trying to leverage. But at the same time, they probably don't have enough data to compete with the larger OTTs. Forget about competing with the TV channels, right, in terms of your numbers or nothing else. So is there a role that you see for regional OTTs, or once we create a tool, will the sixth OTT platform completely lose out the way she put it?
I think it's a tricky question for sure, but what I want to tell you is that, see, whether it is mainstream or regional, understand one thing, that why I am watching that content. I think it needs to have a strong, conversation value, that element needs to be there, because imagine it becomes suddenly a pressure on you that ye dekha kya? And when you say nahi dekha and you are like, oh God, I'm missing out on something huge, right? I think, so whether it is a Hindi show, which is probably as of now a very dominant aspect of OTT, or maybe 5 years down the line, maybe a regional language, sort of emerging against Hindi, that's a secondary question. But first and foremost is, are you able to create that or ride on the conversation value? And I think that's where we are trying to figure out a way ahead, when we are putting a narrative in and around the content. The bigger problem here, I think, and I've been repeating this so many times, is that before it is a media planning mandate, it's a creative mandate. The agencies need to really come up and say, hey, listen, okay, so you're targeting, say, a particular bucket of audience through this OTT, then this is the way forward. Or if not else, then this is the way forward. I think we need to really do a lot of trial and error method to understand that, cookie cutter solution is not going to work. Typically what they come up is, Hindi language में कुछ बना दिया और उसको डब करके पेश कर दिया. I think it doesn't really work, as far as our experiences are concerned, I think. So I think that's where my point is.
So in fact, I mean, this is a little off topic, but since you brought it up, where do you think the responsibility lies in terms of creating a customized solution? Because creative agency बोलेगा मेरे को क्या मालूम कौन सा data points है? Yeah, they'll come up with some creative which is absolutely not targetable, right? Media agency बोलेगा creative though, then we'll make a media plan for you. Where does the responsibility for this rest? Because I think it's a very important point that you brought up.
See, if the media person comes and starts talking to you, I think it's okay to be executional or transactional, because ultimately we are hearing so many metrics, right, which are being referred today by a lot of brands depending upon what their objective is, right? But ultimately, listen, I mean, like, the piece of creative that you are, showcasing outside is a very unique currency. So today I might invest, say, a 5 lakh, money in my OTT campaign, and I get, say, X return, right, in terms of impressions and reach. And suddenly there is an awesome creative that again, is planted with a similar amount of investment, but you reach Y. Now, the delta which is between X and Y is a big, a question mark, which needs to be solved by the agency and the brand together. I think even if I challenge more and enough my partners, they need to come up with, because ultimately they understand my business, right? It's not that they are just dishing out creatives to me. They need to understand my business. They need to understand why am I doing particular activity. And I think it's been 5 years now. I've been chasing this objective, and at times we crack it, and most of the times maybe we are not able to sort of reach out that golden number.
Just like to add to that, right? And especially for creative integration, it's not just about OTT, right? It's across. I mean, you have to give due credit to Swiggy here. If you look at that Uncle G campaign, it's an awesome campaign. It stays in your head because of the fact that it's creatively a genius campaign, right? That would have worked on any platform. So and you're right? I mean, I think we've evolved from a world where just pushing the narrative is going to work. I think creative excellence like that is going to take the brand a long way, and this is irrespective of platforms.
Yeah, but just adding to that, I think there is a responsibility of the OTT platforms as well, because given that they invest so much in understanding the content that will work for their audiences, I think extending that to advertisers, whether it's through data points, it's the same way what Facebook did all those years back with creative best practices, the 9-second story arc. I think we need probably an equivalent of that in terms of best practices, because creative agencies are also struggling with all of these evolving formats and mediums. So I think it is probably equally on the platform side to give some of that.
So I could not agree more. I could not agree more on this. I think OTTs need to step up the game, right? And there has to be that reciprocal from agencies as well in terms of not only data. And I would say, why only data? I know my platform the best. I know my audience the best. And at the end of the day, I'm creating content, so I have a certain amount of creative prowess as well. Partner with me, and I can, I'll take the liberty of saying this on behalf of all OTTs, that we need to step up our game and, invite every single agency and an advertiser to partner with us in terms of content creation. And I completely agree with Amit says that, dubbing a Hindi ad into Tamil won't work, right? It just won't work. People don't relate to it, right? So, and be it a regional OTT or be it a national player with specific strong presence in any of the regions, right, can definitely help open a lot more doors to and a lot more ideas there. Definitely.
Jayesh?
Sorry, I just have a slightly contra view on that. And I think, to me, when the debate is between the agency, the media partner, and the client or the marketeer, I think I would put 80% of the responsibility onto the marketeer, right? Nobody understands your business and nobody understands your brand like you do. Nobody understands the consumer as better as you do, as good as you do. Therefore, to solve the saliency piece, which is once I've made something, saliency needs to be cracked, awareness needs to be cracked, I will put it onto the media partner completely. You crack it for me, you give me the right reach, frequency, reach, etc. But how do I make it relevant to my audiences? What do I need to do is completely my job. It's not the job for the OTTs. I don't think like that. And that's why I think they can help in the process, but the marketing needs to completely own it. That's the view that I take.
Yeah, interesting. So in fact, just since we are in discussion, what are your thoughts in terms of how do you crack the creative content piece for, say, SWOD? Is there a way forward for us? Because that's a question we are all asked. I mean, AWOD ठीक है. AWOD पे तुम, apart from the ads you create, whatever small snippets and this and that. Is there a way to crack it for SWOD?
I think the answer there is content, right? And a couple of brilliant examples, not so much in India, but I was a part of Kellogg's, and globally, if you remember a series called Stranger Things on Netflix, and you remember a brand called Eggo. Now, Eggo is a brand that is owned by Kellogg's, and that is something that Kellogg's did not partner with Stranger Things or with Netflix. But just because it was a part of pop culture, everything, the story revolved around Eggo. Eleven, who was one of the characters, loved waffles, and Eggo was were the waffles that were sitting there. Now, Eggo saw a brilliant increase. They actually saw increase, compared to other campaigns that we were doing for the first time in the last, a few 5 years or so. Now, after that, they realized that this is a very big opportunity, and they co-partnered with Netflix. And then in the next seasons that you see in Stranger Things, you would actually see Eggo like right up and center there. You would see it as a part of the overall storytelling. You would see there were merchandise that was actually created along with Netflix and with Stranger Things as with Eggo. Similarly with Coke, similarly with Subway. I think it's for up to brands to figure out, what the content is there, the consumer is sitting and watching it. How can you make it much more active? I don't believe so much in passive product placement. I don't think it does too much for the brand. But active product placement, where it actually becomes a part of the entire storytelling, I think that's one way of looking at it.
Interesting.
Kosal, sorry, I'll just add to that. Right now, well, we have the example of Stranger Things. We've had a lot of examples in India as well, right? And Unacademy, for example, is a very clear example in Kota Factory, right? And I have had umpteen number of conversations with a lot of advertisers, clients, and all. My personal experience, it takes a bold marketer to take that step, right? It's a huge investment. It doesn't, I agree when he says that, a passive, integration is a blink and a miss. It doesn't add any value, right? An active integration part of the storyline definitely works. We've seen, there was some TVF series where there's a road trip with Tata Tiago as a part of that. Yeah, tripling, thanks. Right, so, those things work, but it will take a certain amount of conviction for marketers and agencies to bet on it, right? It's easy to say that, yes, I want integration. Price tags are going to be big, and you have to bet on it.
No, I disagree. Price tag doesn't necessarily need to be big. I have associated with Inside Edge season 2 and season 3, and trust me, the cost is much less than what I would technically end up spending in a month.
Sure. See, it's when I say price tag's gonna be big, it's you go for an AFP, it's gonna be a big, like, and I'm taking the benchmark as the Kota Factory, right, which was an AFP, so that comes at a large price tag. We can look at an Inside Edge. We had Magic Moments, and we had a couple of other brands that were beautifully integrated in there, right? So these are very clear examples of marketers taking that bet in India, right, on all of the SWOT content. So it's happening, definitely happening, and we'll see, I'm sure, a lot more of it as we move forward.
So Jayesh, you want to elaborate a little more on why? I mean, I think some of the examples are given are also from tech, OTT platforms where the integrations happened, etc. Right? From a traditional FMCG, for a traditional FMCG brand, is integration easy to get it through?
I wish I had a equally innocent answer and a simple answer for this question. So I'll probably take a bit longer to respond to this. I kind of anticipated a question like this, and I had made my points on. Okay. So to start with, a disclaimer: the views are personally mine, and my organization doesn't kind of attribute to these point of views.
Noted.
See, I think one of the key challenges of most of the OTT platforms or digital in large are 3 M's. I'm using a new acronym now: matrix, measurement, and mathematics. And I'll kind of dive into each of them. Well, most of us are used to conventional ways of advertising and a 10-second ad and everything, and we keep talking about lower attention spans. I don't think a lower attention span means having a matrix of 1 second, 3 seconds, or 5 seconds, or 6 seconds. So let's kind of have the matrix at least aligned to the way we operate. When it comes to measurement, again, I think the need of the hour is a single currency. And while I think you did mention that BARC was working with eCam and other things, today we know for a fact that Nielsen One and ComScore everywhere is absolutely functional in other markets. It's just a matter of time to kind of bring it in. The third is a challenge that most of these platforms have created. It's an ironclad garden, a walled garden. They are the maker, they are the checker. So somebody comes in, if I work a plan and say it's a 10 million impression plan, I'm totally dependent on the person coming in saying, boss, your 10 million impressions have been delivered. I have zero idea on what that means. Okay, we keep talking about cohorts, we keep talking about doing targeted campaign and other things, and you don't even know 30 days में कितना चला क्या चला यार. You know, I fail to understand. So I understand impressions. Okay, as a metric, I understand impression. But somebody comes and says, okay, 20 million impressions, a reach of 2 million, 3 million, or whatever. And when I kind of, sorry, but I'm a bit rudimentary. I want to translate into saying, okay, where does it kind of sit in terms of a frequency for me? When you try to look at, break it down in terms of inventory, it will end up giving you 0.1 ad being viewed per match. Yeah? Sorry, that's not the mathematics that I'm interested in. As an advertiser, my conventional wisdom tells me that if you're onto cricket, you need to have at least a 3 to 4 spot in a T20 match. What is a 0.1 ACD here? I think these things need to change, and I think it's a joint onus for the platform owner, for the advertiser, and the agency equally. Yeah? The agency cannot be sitting behind saying कि boss तुम लोग दोनों झगड़ लो मेरा बीच में तो कमीशन मेरा बन ही रहा है.
Personal views, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, I think the biggest con job in the industry is a brand lift study. बस तुम्हारे ही प्लेटफॉर्म पे मैंने कभी एक्टिविटी किया नहीं है, मैंने एक्टिविटी किया तो जाहिर है कि यार द नंबर्स आर गोइंग टू शूट अप. व्हाट द फक इज अ ब्रांड लिफ्ट स्टडी कमिंग एंड टेलिंग मी दिस इज वर्किंग? कम ऑन गाइस, मतलब इतना भी नहीं काटो दूसरे का ना. लेट्स बी काइंड ऑफ let's use some numbers, science, maths, and let's go with the conventional numbers, the formats that we're used to. Let's talk reach, let's talk frequency. Well, it's nice to say, you know, Amit said that he has actually increased his spends on the OTT platform from a single digit to a double digit. I mean, I'm not diving deeper into that. Okay, boss, did we ask the right questions to see whether that double digit number has started delivering for the brand or no?
Thank you. Okay, so just last question. While the onus is on all of us to clean this up, when do you think platforms would be ready to be completely transparent with the data? Would agencies be ready to share all the data as it comes? So, for example, Gaurav, while it's everyone's responsibility, would you be willing to share, say, an API of your data which can directly be linked and not an Excel sheet with numbers?
Yes and no, right? See, numbers come with a lot of responsibility, right? I get like 20 requests from 20 different agencies every day for the data that I shared with them yesterday, right? So I save a lot of time and energy by sharing my data transparently, right? Provided I know that, you know, it's being used responsibly and for the right purposes, right? So yes, short answer is yes, I'm open to doing that. Will I do it tomorrow? No, I will not do that. And, you know, to like Averill's point earlier, right? Few years back, there was a massive amount of hesitancy in going the programmatic route for OTTs. Today, and I can say that in front of everybody, 50% of my campaigns are programmatic. I'm running it, it's open, and again, my pain point, so many DSPs. Everybody has DSPs, everybody has trackers, so I'm happy to put in every tracker that you want, right? Nielsen wants their own, they have their own definition, I have my own data enrichment, agree, disagree. That's an ongoing fight, right? So a single currency of buying, a single currency of measurement helps all of us, right? So yes, I'm open to doing that. Will I do it tomorrow? No, I won't, right? Tell me how you're going to use the data. And let's have, you know, it's like, let's have an escrow account, right? You share with me, I share with you. It cannot be a one-way traffic.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I think the time's up. We'll probably open it up for questions. But before that, just one very quick question to all the panelists. And a quick raise of hands. How many of you have your own Netflix account and password? Wow. Okay. Chalo. Let's open it up. Do we have time for questions?
We do have, but
Okay.
2 to 3 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, please. I think the gentleman there.
हेलो हेलो
Hello. Yes, yes.
माय
go on.
नेम सौरभ गुप्ता. मेरा क्वेश्चन था ओटीटी पे OTT समझ लो हमारा एक बिजनेस का दुकान है, लेकिन हम दुकान पे तब जाते हैं जब हमें पता रहता है इस पे ये चीज़ रिलीज़ होने वाली है। मेरा ये मानना, हम ऐसे मतलब हमारे OTT पे ऐसा हमें पता ही नहीं रहा कि क्या चीज़ रिलीज़ होने वाली, कुछ यूनिक चीज़ हमेशा रिलीज़ होती जाए। जैसे यूट्यूब पे आज फ्रैंक वीडियो कुछ भी रिलीज़ होती है, तो हम लोग देखते रहते हैं किस कौन फ्रैंक वीडियो हो, कौन सा फ्रैंक वीडियो चालू हो रहा है, उसको हम लोग देख लेते हैं। वैसे मेरा मानना है कि OTT पे भी हम कुछ भी देखना चाहें, ना कि हमें ये पता हो कि आज ये रिलीज़ हो रही है मूवी, हमें आज यही देखनी है। हमें ये पता होना चाहिए कि आज हम कुछ फ्रैंक्स, कुछ न्यू वीडियोस आएगी जो हमें पता नहीं है, लेकिन उसमें सर्च करेंगे तो हम देखेंगे। तो उसमें क्या होता है, हमें ये कुछ हॉटस्टार पे लोग ये सोचेंगे, किसी पे भी OTT प्लेटफॉर्म पे ये सोचेंगे आज कुछ न्यू मिलने वाला है, उनको पता नहीं रहेगा, लेकिन उसमें सर्च करेंगे कुछ न्यू। और इसमें ये देखता है कि हमें कुछ और देखना है, लेकिन हॉटस्टार पे कुछ और दिख रहा है। मतलब हम जैसे मैं भोजपुरी कुछ और देखना, मतलब कुछ भी और मूवीज मुझे देखनी रहती है, लेकिन हॉटस्टार वाले अपना ही आगे देख देते हैं। मतलब पहले आप मैच देखो, फिर नीचे आप नाटक शो है, फिर आप नीचे ये देखिए। ये प्रॉब्लम फेस आउट होती है हम लोग को। मतलब जैसे अभी यूट्यूब है, यूट्यूब OTT प्लेटफॉर्म नहीं है, लेकिन यूट्यूब पे ये होता है कि हमें जो नीड रहती है वो हमें अपने अपने मुकाबले दिखते हैं, लेकिन OTT पे सब अपने हिसाब से दिखाते हैं। मेरा मानना ये है कि OTT पे जो सर्च करें, जो वो दिखा रहे हैं, हम वो आगे पहले देखें। हमें जो देखना वो हमें देखना चाहिए।
तो सी दिया
मतलब मेरा एक्चुअली प्रॉब्लम ये है कि मतलब उस पे नॉर्मल, जैसे मेरे गांव में कोई पर्सन है, उसने अच्छा कैमरा यूज किया, उसको उस हॉटस्टार या OTT पे वो रिलीज कर सके, जिसको उसके नियर बाई लोग भी ये सोचे अगर देखना उस पे जाकर देख ले। मतलब ये चीज भी होना चाहिए। OTT नॉट फॉर मूवी के लिए देखो, या कोई सीरीज कोई बड़े ब्रांड एम्बेसडर बनाने, वो आप देख सकते हैं ना। उसमें नॉर्मल भी वीडियोस अपलोड होना चाहिए जो हमें ये पता है हाँ ये भी हम देख सकते हैं।
Okay, it changed from a technology answer to a strategy answer, right? So आपकी बात समझ गया मैं। See, YouTube का बेसिक स्ट्रैटेजी है कि वो यूजर जनरेटेड कंटेंट डालते हैं, जो हम आजकल शॉर्ट फॉर्म वीडियो पे भी देख रहे हैं, जोश, मौज वगैरह वगैरह, राइट? जो OTTs हैं, ये लोग सब OTTs क्यूरेटेड कंटेंट डालते हैं, क्योंकि क्वालिटी ऑफ कंटेंट जो होता है, जो हम अपने सेलफोन से बनाएंगे वर्सेस जो अपलॉज एंटरटेनमेंट बनाएगा या TVF बनाएगा या कोई प्रोडक्शन हाउस बनाएगा, उसमें क्वालिटी में फर्क आता है। सो OTT का जो स्ट्रैटेजी रहता है वो ये रहता है कि यूजर जनरेटेड कंटेंट, क्योंकि उस पर हमारा कंट्रोल नहीं रहता है कि क्या अपलोड किया जाएगा, इसलिए वो OTT की स्ट्रैटेजी नहीं है। नंबर 1। आपका पहला सवाल, जो OTT वही दिखाते हैं जो वो दिखाना चाहते हैं, उसका जवाब है अ पर्सनलाइजेशन एल्गोरिथम। सो फ्रॉम अ प्रोग्रामिंग स्टैंड पॉइंट, जब तक वो पर्सनलाइजेशन क्रैक नहीं करेंगी OTTs, कि आपको जैसे थ्रिलर देखना चाहते हैं, आपने पहले थ्रिलर देखा है या हॉरर देखा है या रोमांटिक देखा है या कॉमेडी देखा है, उसी टाइप का कंटेंट आपको और दिखाया जाएगा आपके होम पेज पे, राइट? सो वो पर्सनलाइजेशन एल्गोरिथम्स, जैसे जैसे और ज्यादा डेटा आपके बारे में, जितना टाइम आप स्पेंड करेंगे OTT पे, जितना डेटा OTT के पास आपकी कंटेंट चॉइसेस का होगा, उतना वो पर्सनलाइजेशन आपके जो आपको दिखाई देगा आपके होम स्क्रीन पे, उतना ज्यादा हो जाएगा।
गौरव, इसका एक और जवाब है। अगर आप OTT पे पासवर्ड शेयर कर रहे हैं और 10 लोग अलग अलग कंटेंट देख रहे हैं, आपका डेटा क्यूरेशन वैसे आएगा नहीं। YouTube आपके फ़ोन पे है, आपके ID पे है, इसके लिए आपको आपका क्यूरेटेड कंटेंट मिलता है।
थैंक यू, आई एग्री।
There was a time, Anil Banware here, there was a time when Doordarshan audience ratings were on. A lot of gut investments were done by media planners and media buyers. Guys like Sam put in big money behind big shows. So why aren't we seeing that happening on OTT to that extent as is expected? The gut investment. I'm not saying OTTs, I'm talking about the media side and the brands. Why aren't they putting so much more gut behind it? Why do they only want data? Why do you want only want an ROI? The ROI will come if the content is good. This is not against you, but you thought I was coming against you, Gaurav. This is about the brands.
Anil, when Doordarshan was on, there was only one channel which was beaming content. Okay, there were no alternatives. The only alternative was All India Radio.
Yeah, but you had DRD. You had their own diary entry method.
Yeah,
you trusted it.
I worked on it. I worked on dark data. यार, मतलब मेरी त्वचा से मेरी उम्र का पता नहीं चलता, but मुझे भी 25-26 साल हो गए हैं इंडस्ट्री में। I worked on dark data. Okay, see, in terms of taking a punt on any OTT platforms and other things, it's not that we are not, the advertisers are not taking punt. We are taking punt, but at the same time, today, if I have to put in a certain amount of money on the table, I need to be personally convinced, and second, I need to be able to justify internally in terms of why that money is going on the table. And therefore, it is critical to have some level of matrix and measurement, or let's say milestones agreed before you take that punt.
Also, just to add to that, I think the punt is being taken, right? I mean, if you look at it, yeah.
You're a different beast. BYJU'S is a different beast. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about other brands. I mean, your BYJU'S Cricket Live and whatever punks you're going behind.
No, but as he pointed out, right, and if you look at TVF for that matter, right, I mean, they've actually done content integration with brands really, really well. If you look at Aspirant, with Aspirants, you look at TVF, Tripling and all of these. Right?
Loose change. OTT is investing hundreds and thousands of crores behind content. SWOD is not really working to the extent as it should. AWOD is the way. Netflix is moving towards AWOD internationally. So you all guys need to open your eyes and open your wallets and start putting more money behind AWOD.
Totally. We'll take that back.
So the answer to that, I think, is, trust comes from expectation setting, right? I think because a lot of advertisers, a lot of marketeers don't really understand OTT very well. It's still very new as compared to TV. We understand TV pretty well, right? When you go to a media agency,
Earlier, though, remember, Doordarshan was the sole thing.
Agree.
Yeah.
Agree. The point that I'm making is when you go to a media agency and when the media agencies or the OTT platforms educate you about what you need to expect, I think it needs to be very clear. Sometimes it's not very clear. We were having this conversation, in the room outside. Sometimes the expectation is very clearly saying आप OTT पे advertise करोगे, आपके direct sessions आ जाएंगे, आपका traffic आ जाएगा, आपका sale बढ़ जाएगा. वो होता नहीं है. किसी भी brand के लिए कभी नहीं होगा. In TV, nobody expected that. I don't think anybody who advertised on TV said that यार आज मैं रिन का ad चलाऊंगा तो कल रिन की sale बढ़ जाएगी by 10% और मैं ITC ad चलाऊंगा ITC बढ़ेगा. Nobody expected that. Everybody expected awareness बढ़ेगी, interest बढ़ेगा, desire और action बाद में होता रहेगा, right? I think that expectation setting as to what can OTT give you, what are the metrics to look at, is very important. Therefore, it becomes a part of a media mix. Therefore, 10%, 20% keeps going. But also at the same time, I don't agree with you that people are not investing. People are investing tons of money behind OTT. Yeah? Like at least the companies that I have worked for, whether it's Ola or Oziva or now Swiggy or Kellogg's for that matter, tons of money is going behind OTT.
How much a percentage is it?
Sir,
is it 5%? I think what you need to do is keep aside.
Let's compare it to 3 years or 4 years back. 3 years or 4 years back, it was probably 2, 3, 4%, right? It's upwards of 13, 14, 15% now, which is pretty huge.
So if I have to answer from an FMCG industry perspective, I think about 18 to 25% of the TV money is actually go on OTT. If you look at just the digital pie perspective, about I would say about 40 odd percent of not 40, maybe about 30 odd percent of the digital.
YouTube and Facebook.
No. I'm not talking about YouTube and Facebook. I'm using YouTube. I'm considering that as a part of the video advertising mix, but I'm also including the OTTs. So most marketers would look at YouTube plus OTT as an extension of the way they evaluate video metrics.
I'm just pressing buttons. I need you all to spend
No,
more on
absolutely.
OTT. I'm just pressing buttons. That's it.
Thank
Please
you,
do.
Anil. I love you more.
Am I audible?
Yeah, please.
Hi. I am an advertising filmmaker, a producer, director. And it's a brilliant panel and it was a very informational, so to speak, discussion that you just had. What I have observed in past few years is that the amount of money being spent on one ad film has drastically gone down. Like we are looking at, and I believe that OTT has a role to play in that because the shelf life of a particular film, an ad film, has drastically gone down. And while I understand from a client's point of view that why would I spend so much money like a Dhara or a Fevicol campaign which would get made, not so much of it is getting made now and not that much of money is being spent on it. And a lot of focus shift has happened towards content marketing, as you mentioned. So do you have a wish list or kind of an advice to ad filmmakers moving forward if you want to see a change in that ecosystem as well? It will be great. Thank you.
I love that question, right? And I think I wanted to land with this whole conversation. I wanted to land, there are two different worlds. I'm a marketer and I'm seeing two different worlds in marketing.